All right, today we are diving headfirst into one of the most absolutely mind-bending theories about our own consciousness. It's a radical idea, and it all starts by questioning the very voice inside your head.
Seriously, just stop and think about that for a second. You know that constant chatter in your mind? The voice that helps you figure things out, worry, or just decide what to eat? What if that wasn't actually you?
What if, instead of weighing pros and cons, you just heard instructions? A voice telling you to fight, to run, to build something, to fall in love. And you never questioned it. Because why would you? You believed it was coming straight from a god.
Now, this might sound like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's a very real psychological theory about our own ancestors, and it's the brainchild of one man from back in the 70s. This guy, Julian Jaynes, looked at the dawn of human civilization, and he asked this really fundamental question. Did ancient people even think the same way we do? And his answer was a resounding no. He believed they lacked self-awareness entirely, and he came up with a wild model to explain how they operated.
He called it the bicameral mind. Now, bicameral just means two chambers, like in a government. And that name is the perfect description for how he thought the ancient brain was structured. So here's the core of it. Jaynes's big idea was that until about 3,000 years ago, humans weren't conscious in the way we understand it. There was no internal debate, no self-aware little voice. Instead, their mind was literally split in two. One part gave the commands, and the other part just obeyed.
And he even tried to map this onto the brain itself. He figured the right hemisphere, which is more creative, was generating these auditory commands that literally sounded like an external voice. And then the left hemisphere, our language center, was just the listener. It heard the commands and acted on them. No questions asked, no introspection. So you have a speaker and a listener, a god and a human, all coexisting inside one skull.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, this is a wild theory. What kind of evidence could there possibly be for something like this? Well, this is where Jaynes's work gets truly fascinating.
He made a great point. You can't find consciousness in a fossilized skull. It just doesn't preserve. But, he argued, you can see it, or in this case, the lack of it, in how people talked about themselves in the very first things they ever wrote down. Let's take something like Homer's Iliad. The heroes in that story, they don't sit around weighing their options or reflecting on their feelings. When a character like Agamemnon feels wronged, he doesn't have an internal struggle. Nope, the goddess Athena just shows up and tells him what to do. For Jaynes, this wasn't just some poetic flair. He was convinced it was a literal description of how they experienced the world.
Just try to imagine living like that for a second. You wouldn't choose to do things. Your actions would feel like commands from somewhere else. You wouldn't have any internal debate, no reflecting on whether you did the right or wrong thing. All the credit and all the blame, it all went to the gods, whose voices were your constant guides.
Now, according to Jaynes, this system worked just fine in those early, stable, top-down societies. But then, something changed. The world got chaotic, and the voices, they fell silent.
And this really is the crucial turning point in the whole theory. I mean, if this mental setup was working, why did it just vanish? Why did we end up with this self-aware, introspective consciousness that we all have today? Jaynes points his finger directly at the massive societal collapse around the end of the Bronze Age. You had huge empires crumbling, people being forced to move, total chaos. The old, stable world that the bicameral mind was built for was gone. Suddenly, you couldn't just wait around for the voice of a god or king to give you an order. You had to figure out how to survive in a complicated, messy new world. And that stress, he believed, forced our minds to change. So all this chaos forced the brain to develop a brand new tool. The two chambers of the mind started to merge, to integrate. That quiet human part had to learn to create its own voice. It had to build an internal space to plan, to imagine different futures, to tell a story about me. And that, according to Jaynes, was the birth of consciousness as we know it.
So where does all of this leave us today? Is this theory just some historical oddity? Not at all. Its implications are actually pretty profound.
Look, the bicameral mind theory is basically impossible to prove or disprove, right? But its real power is as a thought experiment. It makes us realize that the way we experience the world, our own consciousness, isn't some fixed, timeless thing. It had a beginning. It suggests that maybe the origin of religion is a kind of neurological echo, a memory of a time when we literally heard God speaking to us. And it forces you to ask, what is this voice in my head really?
And that is the final incredible question Jaynes's theory leaves on the table. If our current consciousness isn't the end of the line, if it's just one stage in a long evolution, well, what comes next? If our minds changed so dramatically once before, what will they look like 3,000 years from now? I'll let you chew on that one.